Good evening, everybody. It is just a little bit after 6 p.m. on Thursday. This week is almost over. Almost over. Right now, I am listening to the RME 80i2 DAC on a new pair of headphones. What are these? This is the Final Audio Sonorous 6. And they're a little different. They're definitely something different, both in style and in sound. And I'm not a huge fan of their sound, but I also appreciate what they actually provide, which is something different. So this is part 1 of the actual tutorial of how to find a amplifier or DAC or combo that would work for you. And so what I've done is I have created a Google presentation. I will link that to the description below so you can take a look at it at your leisure, although it doesn't really provide a whole lot for you to grasp and put into a web page, for example. There are no links. But what this does do is kind of organize my thoughts so that we have a starting point. So yesterday when I uploaded my last video, it was just an introduction about what is about to happen, and now we're going to begin the thought process. So let's get to it, shall we? This is the Amp Dac Guide, Part 1, The Endless Possibilities. And why do I call it the endless possibilities? Because there are so many things, so many factors, so many decision points for you to consider before you make a purchase. And as I said yesterday, it's not up to me to decide and to tell you what you should buy. It's up to you to decide what you should buy. I can only tell you what my particular preferences are, which may not be your preferences. Instead, our goal should be to find a process by which we can employ our thoughts, our objectivity, our analysis, and then use all of that in combination to find what works best for us individually, for us. And clearly, there's plenty of room for opinion, plenty of room for suggestions and recommendations, but we should all have the tools necessary to begin the process and not rely on others to tell us what to do. In that vein, let's start the presentation. Actually, this is not going to work because it's not going to capture the whole thing. Let's just start this way. What to avoid? Well, if you have watched Zeos and DMS, they have repeatedly said, especially Zeos has repeatedly said, that he, in conjunction with DMS, has created what is called hifi-guide.com, or hifi guides with an S. I think it's with an S. hifi-guides.com. And what is hifi-guides.com? Well, he says that it is a guide to help you find the right pair of headphones for you. Unfortunately, it's not a guide for anyone, not a guide. It doesn't provide explanations for the suggestions, no guidance for what to look for, lacks details for the items suggested, and links. The links that they have are only for the purchasing of those said items, and you still have to go out and hunt for the reviews for those particular headphones. And let me be clear, it's only for headphones. It doesn't include amps and DACs and things of that nature. They might expand it. Now, if you've never been to hifi-guides.com, let's go there real quick. And this is not a review of that thing, but I want to be able to explain to you what I am going to avoid so that you know exactly where we're coming from. So when you go to hifi-guides.com, the first thing you will have to choose is whether you want headphone. Oh, they've enlarged it to include speakers and subwoofers. That's nice. Headphones, in-ear monitors, speakers, or subwoofers. Let's say we're looking for headphones. And then you get to choose a price range between $10 and more than $2,000. And do you want those headphones to require an amplifier? You click yes. And then from there you go, do you want open back or closed back? Let's say closed back. And from there, do you want dark, mid-forward, neutral, V-shape, bright, or warm? Well, let's say neutral. And what recommendations do they have? The T50RP, the T60RP, the Icon, the NDH20 of all things, and the Ether C Flow. And that's it. Well, what if you click on one thing? You can't click on any of these images because the images don't take you anywhere. The only link that you have now is the Amazon link, which, by the way, even though it says Amazon link, not all of them are actually for Amazon. They take you to a different site sometimes. And there you are. Now you get to buy it. That's their hifiguides.com. It's more like hi-fi web links for amazonpurchases.com. That's what it should be. And one of the things that I am confused about, and perhaps you know the answer, but when Zeos and DMS link these purchase links, are they getting any kickbacks from Amazon? Because that is a thing. When reviewers link merchandise to Amazon, Amazon gives them a kickback for every purchase that is made from that link. And I don't know if Zeos and DMS are getting that kickback because nowhere is it stated on their hifiguides.com. And I haven't heard anything on their videos, although I haven't really paid attention to their videos lately, whether they get kickbacks. So this is what I want to avoid. Not just give you stuff and then have you go someplace and just buy it, because that's not helpful. So what are we going to do? Let's talk about things you don't think about, but you should. That's the first starting point. So how am I going to use this? How am I going to use the amplifier or DAC that I want to purchase? Is it for casual listening? Is it for hobbyist purposes? Or is it for professional? Because all of those things require separate decision points. If it's for casual use, then maybe you want to stick to a smaller budget, whatever that small budget happens to be for you. Maybe it's $250, maybe it's $500, maybe it's $1,000, depending on your own budgetary constraints. What if you're a hobbyist? Well, then you need to accept that there is no perfect answer. If you are a hobbyist, you will never be content, because that's the whole point of a hobbyist, that you make a hobby out of experimenting, out of trying, out of learning, out of growing. And a hobbyist is not going to be satisfied with one thing, because they're always going to want to tinker with something else. And if you're a professional, well, you really should be talking to me. You really shouldn't be listening to my videos. You should instead go and talk to much more knowledgeable people and prepare to spend a lot of money, because for professionals, there are plenty of products out there that are marketed at $1,500 or more for headphones, amplifiers, DACs, so forth. And so that's where we get into the budget. What if your budget is under $250? Well, then here's a couple of things. You need to agree to just accepting the sound that you get from $250. You get good sound from $250 as long as you understand that you don't know a difference. In other words, when you spend no more than $250, you're not getting the best sound. I don't think that should be contested. You're not getting the best sound. And if you're okay with that, then great. You will never know the difference. And that's more for a casual listener. But if you're a hobbyist, then you should at least consider that you will end up paying more than $250. But you should also be careful. Caveat emptor. Because you're going to get sucked into the world of more is better. The more I pay, I'm going to get better results. Because at some point that plateaus and you're not getting the return for the extra expenditure in money. Okay, so you need to think about these things. Next thing you need to think about, how powerful do I want the amplifier to be, if we're talking about amplifiers? Now, generally, the more power you have, the more noise you're going to introduce, and the more expensive the amplifier is going to get. If the amplifier says, if the manufacturer says, we're going to give you, 5 watts of power, and it's going to be clean power. The signal-to-noise ratio is going to be extremely low. The total harmonic distortion is going to be exceedingly low, 0.0005%. Then you're going to end up paying a little bit more money, more than $250, because those manufacturers are doing whatever stuff they're doing in order to give you the power while also reducing or capping the noise that is inherent with additional power output. If it's less powerful, if you say, I don't really want the power, then is it really worth the upgrade from your current setup? Think about that. If you're not concerned about power, what are you concerned about? Perhaps your computer audio, the sound card in your computer audio, is just fine. And if you think that spending $100 is going to get you astronomically better sound, well, maybe not. Sure, you can get a shit Magni for about $100, and you will definitely get power. But the sound that you get from the shit Magni which will, by the way, require a separate DAC, the sound that you get from the SHIT magnet may not be all that much better to your ears than what you're getting from your computer sound card. And when I say sound card, I don't mean the onboard sound chips on your motherboard. I'm talking about a separate PCIe sound card. And there are a number of them out there that could theoretically be enough for you, although the prices for them are almost as much as a $250 amplifier. What about your phone or your tablet or something mobile? Well, a lot of times our phones and our tablets have generally good sound cards or DACs. They just don't have powerful amplifiers. They can't because they have to be efficient. They have to run all day. They have a lot of other multitasking criteria that has to be met, and they have to be very judicial about how they use the power. So if you're not interested in power, what do you want to spend money on for? Well, do you want a do you want an Amp Dac combo? Well, if so, then things get complicated fast. Which brand of unit and DAC chipset do you want? And that really is the issue of a DAC chipset, because when we're talking about combos, a couple of things come up. Do you want an AKM? Do you want a Cirrus Logic? Do you want a Wolfson? Do you want some other brand of DAC? Because you read on threads that this particular DAC is so good on this particular issue. The Wolfson DACs are warm sounding. The Cirrus Logic is neutral-ish. The AKM has those filters everybody wants. And if that's what you're looking for, then you have to then tailor your analysis to find an amplifier combo that has that particular DAC chipset in it. And yes, you will find those. Those are, in fact, sold. But it becomes a little bit more tasking to go look for those specific items, so specific modules in the amplifier DAC combo. And by the way, do you really need a DAC? Are you looking for an amplifier, or are you looking for a DAC? You have to answer that question as well. If you're looking for an amplifier, then theoretically you could find something that's relatively affordable, under $250 to $500, with sufficient power, and be happy as long as you have a DAC at home. Or you want to use the sound card that comes with your computer. Or you're going to buy a sound card separately, and you don't want to do a desktop solution for a DAC. Or do you need a DAC and you don't need an amplifier? Let's say you don't really care about more power. You already have a SHIT magnet. You just want a clean, nice, neutral DAC. And now you're going to have to make a decision. What else do you need to think about? Well, you need to think about, how am I going to use this setup? Am I going to use it with my computer, a standalone stereo unit sort of thing? Or am I going to use it with a phone or a digital audio player companion? Now, if you're going to use it for a computer, you have to understand that there are issues with compatibility. So Macs rarely ever need drivers. Mac has preloaded drivers with all their their recent OSs, operating systems. But I have a Macintosh, a Mac Pro 2013. They're top of the line Mac Pro from 2013. Well, it's the base level 2013 Mac Pro, but top of the line for me. And it consistently has stability issues with multiple drivers for the various DACs that I have. It won't read them. I'll have to restart the computer. I'll have to play around with the USB ports, take them out, plug them back in, turn on the amplifier and the DAC, turn them off. I mean, it's a whole witchcraft to try to make things work. Windows does require drivers for the most part. Now, with Windows 10 and Creators Update, there are some drivers that are pre-installed with the Creators Update, but not all of the time. And sometimes those pre-installed drivers are not compatible with your DAC. And sometimes older drivers that the DAC requires can't be installed in the version of Windows that you're using. So this is compatibility problems for your computer. And you need to figure out whether or not those things are going to be a hindrance for you, because you don't want to end up spending $500 on a combo, plug it into your Windows computer, and find out that it simply won't work every time, that you're constantly restarting, that you're looking on forums to try to find a solution. because that just takes away from the enjoyment of the craft, which is listening, which is why we're here to begin with. So you must always look into whether there are drivers that need to be installed, how they need to be installed, and where you can get the most up-to-date, most stable drivers, whether it's from Windows themselves, from a forum that somebody has posted, or from the manufacturer's website. Now, you might say, just go to the manufacturer's website. Well, trust you me, sometimes the manufacturers don't update their websites. Sometimes they discontinue the DAC or amp that they're selling, and they don't have links to the drivers anymore. Sometimes they include it with the CD, and you toss that CD away because who has CD drives anymore? And what do you do then? Where do you find those drivers if they're not readily available on the manufacturer's website? Issues that you need to consider. What else? Well, if you're going to use your amp or DAC or combo in a stereo standalone, make sure it's got the right connections for the DAC portion. If you're connecting to a phonograph, a CD or DVD player, or other digital source, you need to make sure that your DAC is capable of actually connecting. You may need a SPDIF connection for a CD player or a DVD player. You may need an HDMI connection for a DVD player to send sound to a DAC. And I don't know of any DACs that have HDMI connection for sound alone. A phonograph will have its own particular connection port. Make sure your DAC has that capability. What about if you're using a phone or a digital audio player companion? Well, generally, you don't need drivers for that, right? The way that you connect, the easiest way to connect is using the 3.5 millimeter port on your player, your phone or your digital audio player, and then connecting it to the DAC module. And it's easy to find connectors for that. You can get a 3.5 millimeter to RCA splitter cord cable, and that'll be good enough. The problem is if you go down that route, you will not get the best sound, and you will introduce some noise into the signal, because those are not particularly the best way to send high-res audio from a player to an amp or a DAC. And by the way, if it's 3.5 millimeter and you're sending that source to an amplifier, it's going to amplify everything, including any noise that is introduced in the signal path. So you need to be careful about that. Now, some some DAPs, digital audio players, have USB ports. And those USB ports have a capability of connecting to other DACs. You need to take a look at that and make sure if you do have a DAP that you want to use, that indeed it will work with an external DAC. What's next? Well, that was the easy stuff. Now there's some more easy stuff. There's no thing as a matching pair of Amp Dac. So a company may make an amplifier and a DAC, and they might make a number of those things. You don't have to pick out of that company's lineup. You don't have to get their amplifier and their DAC. You can get any combination of amplifier and DAC. It's that simple. You like an amplifier from Shit? Great. Go get their amplifier. Get the Shit Modi 3. Or not Modi, Magni 3. $100, you get tremendous power out of that. And that's cheap. But you want a good DAC. Well, you can go out and get a $250 DAC from JDS Labs. You can get their LDAC. And now you've got a $100 amplifier and a $250 DAC. Very good one. And for $350, you've got yourself a nice little package that will possibly be the perfect combination for you. Any amp will work with any DAC as long as you have the appropriate connections. It's perfectly fine to put more emphasis on an amplifier than on a DAC unit, or vice versa. A cheap but clean DAC will be plenty good. Now, there is a point at which DACs simply don't get any better. Okay? You may not be able to tell any difference. Now, your computer might. A computer software that is made specifically to judge and graph signals, sound, may show you a huge discrepancy between a cheap DAC and a more expensive DAC. The real question is whether you can hear that difference. And frankly, I think there's a good consensus among reasonable people, and I happen to be one of them, I hope, that if you spend somewhere about $100 to $250 for a DAC, you're pretty much done. There's no need to go out and spend $400, $500, $600, or $1,000 on a DAC, because all you're really paying for after that are extra features that you may or may not actually need. If that. Sometimes you're paying for the name. A cheap but powerful amp will likely be noisy. Well, I have to tell you, even though the Schiit Magni is a very powerful, very cheap amplifier, it doesn't really sound the best to me. I rarely use it because I would prefer to use something cleaner, something that sounds less steely, less tinny, less artificial. And that's just my perception of the music. Where are you going to get this stuff? Well, you can go on eBay, but you got to be very, very careful of scammers and scalpers. And by scalpers, I mean people like who sell the 789 for $1,000. There is no reason why you should spend $1,000 on the 789. And also of scammers who, make all sorts of claims about the particular item. You want to make sure that you vet those individuals by looking at their seller history, taking a good look at their description. Ask questions before you bid. Ask questions before you buy. And sometimes you may lose out on an item because the seller doesn't get back to you soon enough, but you don't know how that's going to end up with you. I mean, you may end up spending $300 for a unit. You get it a couple weeks later, and all of a sudden, it's broken. Now, there's the eBay return policy, and you're protected, but sometimes it takes a bit of effort to get that through. And now you're down the whole $300, $350 until this refund can be processed. You can go on Amazon, but Amazon doesn't really have the best deals, frankly. Amazon watches what other websites are doing, and they will try to undercut. But if other websites aren't really fluctuating in price, they don't really have any reason to undercut a whole lot. Sometimes you get lucky and you find third-party sellers that are in fact selling things for substantially cheaper. And I have purchased items from Amazon third-party sellers for about 1/2 or 1/3 the original MSRP in great brand new or near brand new condition. And I have to tell you, you got to be on your toes and look for those things. But when you find it, you may want to just pull the trigger and get it. You can go to hi-fi sellers online. There are plenty of websites, but they don't give you the best deals. They certainly cater to the hi-fi community, and you will end up paying a premium, but their customer support is second to none. You can also go to US Audio Mart. Sometimes you get things there for cheaper than eBay, but you're also subject to the same types of problems as you are on eBay with respect to sellers. Furthermore, US Audio Mart doesn't have the eBay support, meaning if you get scammed, you don't go through US Audio Mart. There's nobody there to help you on that. You have to go through PayPal or your credit card company. And sometimes that can be a huge hassle, much worse than trying to go through eBay. Finally, never, ever, ever, in my opinion, never look on Craigslist for several reasons. Craigslist is not the place to go and find high-end audio gear. And I am very, very hesitant to ever recommend or use Craigslist because you're walking around with cash and you're deciding to meet up in public locations and you never know what might happen. Now, I'm not trying to employ scare tactics. I'm just telling you, in real life, it's not the safest way to conduct a deal. Moreover, you are much more susceptible to scammers and scalpers. You buy a product, you go meet them at a coffee shop, you get it, you pay them the hard cash, you go home, you plug it in, it doesn't work, now what? If they're good people, if they're good sellers, you email them, they may be able to work something out with you. But if they're scammers and scalpers, they're not going to respond to you. Good luck trying to find them. And you can file a police report, but I'm sure the police aren't really going to be upfront and extra, I was going to say litigious, but extra policeman-like to go and find these scalpers and scammers. Now here comes the endless possibilities. Okay, this is what I just put down real quick. Do you want desktop or portable, amp or DAC or combo, cheap or expensive, worried about sound signature or not, meaning a certain DAC has a warmer sound, more neutral, more steely, things of that nature. Do you want filter options with your DACs? Do you want connection options to connect with phonograph, a CD player, a computer? Do you want a powerful amplifier or not a powerful amplifier? Do you want something that's upgradable? And if you do, then where do you go? Well, you can go to Burson that does provide op-amp upgrades later on. Do you want tube or solid-state amp? Do you want an old DAC or do you want a new DAC module? Do you see how complicated this can get? And all of these things work together. Now, some of this stuff may not matter to you. You don't care about upgradability. Fine. You don't really care what the DAC is. Great. You want something that's powerful. You want something that has some filter options. You don't want to spend a whole lot of money. You want a combo. Great. Now you've narrowed down what you're looking for. And we can start the hunting process. But you have to go through this analysis first so that you clarify for yourself what exactly it is that you're looking for. I'll give you an example. Here's example permutation 1. I want a desktop amplifier and DAC combo with an AKM 4097 EQ DAC module or equivalent. So basically a modern 4090 or 4097 from AKM. And I want a balanced amp terminal. And I want it to drive 300 ohm headphones at least 500 milliwatts. And I want it to run on Windows 10. And it must have a DAC that has an RCA optical and balanced inputs and outputs. And I want it to be under $500. Now, if this is the list of requirements that you put down for yourself, you have narrowed for yourself precisely what you're looking for. This is the type of list I would recommend that you make. These are the things you're looking for. Now, sometimes some of this stuff may not matter. You don't have 300 ohm headphones, so it doesn't really matter what the milliwatt will be at 300 ohms. But find the headphones that you're using, and if you're happy with those headphones, you don't think you're going to end up buying headphones that are higher resistance, higher impedance than that, then great. Now you can kind of ease that requirement a little bit. So with these particular requirements in mind, is there an answer? The answer is yes, of course there is. I would recommend the Schiit Jotunheim. Why? Because it's desktop with balanced DAC option, the AK4490. It has a powerful amplification unit that drives 300 ohm headphones at 900 milliwatts. It's sold at less than $500, I mean technically, but $499. Compatible drivers for Windows 10 are available for download, has XLR and RCA connection options along with the USB for your computer. And all of a sudden, look at that. That was relatively easy to find. I mean, I gave you the answer, I know, but still. Because you were able to identify precisely what you were looking for, you were able to hone in on a particular item. And now you can start the research for that item. Now you know, this is what I want to talk about. You can go to reviewers, you can look up articles, you can go to forums, and get as much detail and information as you possibly can. I'll give you another example. Let's say, for example, permutation 2, I want a portable Amp Dac combo that can drive 300 ohm headphones and has at least a 4-hour battery life. That shouldn't be too hard. And neutral sound signature would be my preference. It should have a Bluetooth option, and it should have filters, and I don't want to pay more than $300. Okay, that's a lot to ask for. Are there options? Yes, there are options. You have the possibility of buying a FIO Q5 or an iFi XCAN or an iFi XDSD or an XDuo XD05. But now the XDuo requires a Bluetooth module you can buy separately. So I'm putting that in this answer because yes, it is capable of Bluetooth with an adapter. Now all three, as I've said, have Bluetooth pre-installed or as options. All are capable of driving 300 ohm headphones. All have filters. The Q5 having slightly more neutral sound, and all under $300 if you shop around. Now, look at that. You set yourself a goal, and with that goal, you were able to narrow the field amongst all these confusing possibilities to 3 excellent options, and you can now judge those 3, compare those 3, based upon reviews, comments, forums. The other thing that you're going to end up having to ask at some point, to tube or not to tube? Hamlet said that somewhere. The tube or not to tube? Do you want to have a tube amplifier or not? Do you want to have a combo amplifier DAC that uses a tube preamplifier stage? Tube amplifiers provide a noticeable sound difference from solid-state amplifiers. And as I've said before many times, if you want a tube amplifier, my go-to recommendation would be the Dark Voice, because it is that good, it is that affordable, and it is that much fun to buy the Dark Voice. But there are many other options out there. Some that are made in Europe that are excellent, like Tor Audio. Some that are made in the UK or in the United States. Some brands that you may never have heard about, like Quad, that makes beautiful, beautiful amplifiers. I have the Quad PA1, which is a brilliant tube amplifier. Or there's Woo Audio if you want to spend a ton of money and you want that warm, smooth tonality that Woo Audio is known for. Tube amplifiers with built-in DACs are expensive and not easily found, however. Now what happens is, because you get a tube amplifier, you're really just paying for that analog feel. You're getting the tube, you're getting the power supply, and manufacturers don't put any real effort into putting in a digital DAC, obviously a digital DAC. Not putting in a DAC module. There are a handful of companies that do allow you to have that option. Quad, for example. Woo Audio has a USB option to go along with their WA7 tube amplifier. Tor Audio from Europe, I think the Ukraine, has at least one, I think two options for tube amplifiers with built-in DAC modules. But not every tube amplifier, in fact, the vast majority of tube amplifiers will not come with a DAC module. And even when they do come with a DAC module, you may not get the latest. And you want to make sure that you're looking at the DAC module that you are interested in with the particular sound signature that you think you want. And you also want to make sure that it's compatible with your operating system if you're using it with a computer. Hybrid tube solid-state amps with DACs are expensive and may not provide the sonic benefits of such a combo, because there is such a thing as a hybrid tube solid-state amplifier. For example, the Shit Lyre or the hifi Pro series of IDSD and ICANN. They do have a tube pre that you can switch on or off or switch back and forth. Cayin, C-A-Y-I-N, also has a tube preamp built into their DAC system, or their amplifier. I'm not quite sure which one it is, either the amplifier or the DAC, that you can use as a combo. But whether or not you're really going to hear a big difference between the solid state and the tube hybrid, it's up for debate. You won't very likely hear a significant difference, as you would with a dedicated tube amplifier with no solid state component whatsoever. Now, with all these things in mind, how many things could possibly be available to us? Well, the field gets muddled real fast. This is the plethora of items that I was able to just grab screenshots of on Google. You have the SMSO, the Q5, the Dark Voice, the Element, the Monolith, the 789, the Lyre, the hifi Ione, the RME, the Arist Audio R2R DAC from Massdrop, the Shit Modi, the XCAN, the X Duo. My God, there's so many things. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Your field of choices are nearly endless. And that is why it is absolutely essential, in my opinion, for you to have the analysis that I set forth previously, just in these few slides before. Because if you don't deploy that type of analysis in your search, then you're going to be hit with all sorts of amplifiers and DACs like this. And you will be confused. And you won't know what to buy. And then the question irrevocably is going to be, what's the best? And I hate that question. Because when you ask what the best, what is the best, that's not really a question. Because there's no answer to it. Instead, when you list requirements like this, you narrow for yourself what it is that you're looking for. You make it more precise, more focused, and less susceptible to nonsense, to BS, and to half-baked, half-assed reviewers who simply don't provide accurate, thorough information. I hope this has been helpful. This is just part 1. What are we going to do in part 2? In part 2, we will discuss the options available for $250 units, combos and standalones. That's $250 maximum for amplifier and $200 maximum for DAC as separate units, so $500 essentially. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because it's really, really hard to find something that's $250 as a combo. If there is something out there, it's made in China somewhere, and you have to go on AliExpress, and good luck finding good reviews for it, or if any reviews whatsoever. So that's going to happen, hopefully, in the next couple of days. I hope that you've enjoyed this. I hope this has been helpful, that this inspires some commentary, discussion, really, and I hope that this drives you to start thinking about your hobby. Because if you think of this as a hobby, then you have to treat it as a hobby, as your passion. And asking somebody else for their opinion about what is the best is not really your hobby then. You're giving up that desire, that passion, that love of this field to somebody else and letting them dictate to you what you should do. And frankly, the whole point of a hobby is for you to enjoy it and for you to experiment and for you to experience the joy of that hobby, of that field by yourself and with others. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. I saw on my YouTube channel that my subscriber base has risen to 116. And I thank all of you so much for subscribing. You are all wonderful people, and I appreciate the feedback, the commentary, the discussions. I truly do thank you from the bottom of my heart for sticking in there with me as my channel progresses, as I try to address some of the issues that you have raised, some of the questions that you have. There are a lot of videos to come. I have had many requests about reviews of this nature or that nature, of this thing and that thing, and versus. I know, there's a lot. There's a whole lot to do. And with a full-time job, with my own life, it's going to take me a while to get there. But it will get there. And we will work towards it together. I hope all of you have a wonderful night. Have a wonderful Thursday evening. Sleep well. Tomorrow's Friday. It's going to roll off like water on a duck's back. And then Saturday will come. And you will have all day Saturday to just relax, hopefully, and take in your hobby as it was meant to be. Have a wonderful night.